So to jack the back of an E-Type up and get it on axle stands, firstly I need to get the front wheels chocked, and because it doesn't have the exhaust fitted, it's going to be considerably easier. So I'm going to be using this jack here with that piece of wood onto the rear suspension frame and jack the car up there and put it on axle stands. So now the rear wheel's off and the car's jacked up, I can have a good inspection for the first time. The side of the rear suspension and the body in the rear wheel arch. So initial inspection, it looks pretty good, but there are small flaws, like those are 2 rivets that are holding on a piece of trim on the inside of the car. There's a crack here and there's a bit of peeling. In fact, you can hear the kind of crunchiness of the stone chipping that's been overpainted. But generally it all looks pretty good, so what I'll do is I'll give it a good clean and inspect it further. So the way to take all of this off the car is to disconnect the brake hoses. We've got an anti-roll bar here. You can see through there just about, there's the prop shaft. So if I take those 4, I think it is, bolts out, yes, and then disconnect the anti-roll bar, disconnect the brakes, and it will just be these 4 rubber mounts to disconnect, so 8 bolts. And then the whole rear suspension, differential and brakes will lower off the car as one. And that can all be refurbished as a unit. So I'm going to take the anti-roll bar off first. One of the problems with an old car like this is you never know how corroded the fixings are going to be. So it's always best to look at different ways. This one here just wasn't undoing, the whole lot was spinning, so I'm going to take it out of here from this little drop link instead. This one's working quite easily, so just work around it, and I'll do this when the whole lot's off the car. There we go. So just finishing disconnecting the left-hand rear anti-roll bar, so you can see it's disconnected from the body there. I just need to move that bolt out. Fortunately, it wasn't too difficult. But as you can see here, there's absolutely no bump stop for the rear left-hand wheel, so that's just obviously corroded and fallen off at some point. So easy enough to replace, but again, it's just one of those things that happens with the car when you're recommissioning it. You find things that are worn out or disappeared. So perfect example of what needs doing on this car. Okay, so I'll just take this bolt out now. Always a good habit to put the washer straight back on and the nut straight back on there, so that you've got them together and you can put them back, because it's so easy to lose track of what's what. Tap that out, and then look, I should be able to feed the anti-roll bar through now. Okay, with that, I can give it an inspection and see whether it's serviceable at all, because it's just got these rubber mounts here that clamp on to the body with that bracket. You can see there's a lot of surface rust and underseal that's built up over time, but actually it seems pretty sound. So it might well be that can be sandblasted, repainted, and it may look as good as new. So and obviously function as good as new as well, because there's no deterioration of the thickness of the rod or any significant deterioration. So once that's refurbished, new bushes, that should be good to go back on. Really good. You can see the flexible brake hose that connects to the rear suspension, or the brakes on the rear suspension, clearly there. I'm going to clamp that, and then it needs to be disconnected so that I can drop the rear suspension without it obviously pulling that. I'll probably replace that with a braided hose rather than that rubber. Even though that rubber looks in good condition, it's just worth replacing while we're at it. Okay, so I've clamped the hose, and the easiest way really to disconnect it now, because I'm going to be replacing the pipe, is just cut through the flexi hose with these tin snips. So I've put a tray beneath to catch any brake fluid. Hopefully that will do the job. Okay, so that's clamped from the front, disconnected from the rear. Okay, so you can see that the brake line's disconnected. I've also disconnected the prop shaft there, so you can see the prop shaft hanging down below where the differential input is. I've put a paint mark to show where they're aligned, just so it goes back in exactly the same way, and all the nuts and bolts are together. So I'll be putting them back on the end of the prop shaft so that they are all back together in the right place. So if we look under here, now the next part is undoing this safety strap. So this radius arm here, it's got a really big rubber mount that goes straight into the body. This safety strap that goes onto the underfloor here is just in case there's a failure here, because of course if this comes disconnected, then your rear wheel is going to be moving forwards and backwards uncontrollably. So it's a kind of an extra safety device to make sure that if there is a failure, it doesn't all go completely wrong very suddenly. Even through the murk, you can actually see that there is a safety wire that's through the bolt head. So there's a hole through the bolt head there, and the safety wire actually stops at that bolt rotating beyond a certain amount. So the safety strap has got bolts that go through the floor, and they're spinning now, so I can't undo them. So that means I've got to take out the passenger seat to get to those bolt heads. Fortunately, it's only 2 bolts that actually secure the seat in place. So with the seat removed, we can see how this works. The front of the seat rail sits underneath there and holds it firmly in place, and then the rear of the seat rail is bolted down to the floor. So with that out of the way, we can lift the rear carpet and see what the floor's like, as well as expose the 2 bolts that are holding the safety strap in place. So with the safety strap undone at the front, I've now undone the bolt at the rear and disconnected the safety wire, at least what looked like safety wire. Someone's actually used copper wire here, which does virtually nothing. It breaks so easily. It should be a proper grade of steel wire that should be used for that, not copper. So not very impressed with the job that was done by someone else there. But once that's out, out comes the safety bracket, and then I need to disconnect from here. Now, on the last one I did of these on a saloon car, it was almost like cold welded on or corroded on, so it took quite a lot of encouragement and levering to get the radius arm to come off its seat there, but hopefully this one won't be so difficult. Okay, so with a few encouraging taps, it's come loose, which is great. Someone's actually put some grease on here to make it less difficult to remove for me, which is encouraging. What I need to do at some point is get a wire brush on the drill and clean up around this area, because as you can imagine, road debris is going to be thrown up from the front wheel down this area, and mud and crap is going to stick in there and cause it to corrode long term. So I just need to make sure that that's all nice and clean. Okay, so this is the right hand side radius arm safety strap just coming off. Hopefully with a few encouraging taps of a hammer, this side will come off as well. No. Okay, so that took a bit of leverage from the underside of the car with a crowbar to get that off. So whilst there's a bit of grease on there, I guess just a bit of corrosion and time had made that stick quite hard. So the last thing remaining are the 4 mounts that hold it on. So I need to prop this all underneath the differential and to take the weight, and then get ready to lower it down. So nearly ready to drop the suspension now, just remembering to take these grease nipples off first so they don't get crushed or snapped off. Okay, so the suspension is basically disconnected now. There are gaps appearing around the mounts here, so there's a couple of nuts to undo, and then the whole lot will be supported on the jack, so I need to be very careful when lowering it because it's very heavy. I've positioned the jack very carefully in the middle, both in the centre of the car and the centre of the axle here. So the mounts are disconnected. I'm hoping it doesn't suddenly drop. So let's hope so. There we have it. Okay, now it's safely down, I can pull it out sideways. There we go, one suspension ready for refurbishment. So I'm using this engine crane with a strap wrapped around the differential to get it up in the air and onto the workbench. Quick check of the strap there. So putting it up on the workbench will make it much easier for my back, as well as just getting better access to all of the fixings. So after manoeuvring it into position, it's about ready to lower onto the workbench. As you can see, I've put wooden blocks underneath the frame because of course the suspension, when in droop, hangs lower than the middle of the frame. And there we have it, one rear suspension on the workbench. As you can see, it's dirty, it's greasy, it's quite rusty, but actually it's a really good basis. There's nothing significantly wrong with this as a start point for a really good and thorough restoration. It'll be completely transformed by the time I put it back on the car. So that's it for now. In the next episode, I'll start to strip down the IRS. Thanks for watching.